Some of you seem to devil a long way up there, but never mind. I'm sure the audio is good enough, but the visuals, maybe you're a bit far, so if you want to move down, please feel free, okay? But I'm not going to bully you into doing that. Metamaterials is one of those areas of science, materials science, which has sort of hit the headlines in the last dozen years or so. But in fact, it's very old. The arguments run around as to what is a metamaterial. We'll come to that in a moment. I'm sure if I was to argue with Ian Hooper who's here, we would have a disagreement even in my own group as to what a metamaterial is. I don't want to actually necessarily get involved with that so much, but to show you some of the excitement which is available. What we're talking about is to have a structure in general which will give you a response, a behaviour, something which is not necessarily the way the component parts would behave. And there are some obvious examples in nature which I'll begin with. But the simplest example I can illustrate, perhaps, a metamaterial in some senses, and I say guardedly in some senses, let me just turn the lights way up, is this. Something you've known about since you were rather little. And it's just a very simple case of a soap bubble. And a soap bubble is a very strange thing. If you like, hello Malcolm. No, I thought it was Malcolm there, somebody else. Sorry about that. Sorry. We've got to ask yourself, what is a soap bubble? What are its components? And how does it get those colours? Alright? Because the material of which it's made certainly doesn't have those startling iridescent colours in it. And so, if you were to go to a school and ask the school children what they've been taught about materials, they'd say solids, liquids and gases. Okay, so what are you? You're full of composites, complex composites, which are nothing like solids, liquids and gases. In fact, if you were solid right now and you walk down the stairs, you'd fracture. If your cell membranes were liquid, you'd be a dribble on the floor. So your cell membranes are clearly none of those things. They're actually liquid crystals, but that's another story. But how do we get those colours in a soap bubble? And it's a consequence of the thickness of the layer. That's all. The thickness of the water layer. The water layer trapped between two monolayers of soap. Soap itself will not have those colours. Water doesn't have those colours. But the combination of a monolayer of soap molecules on the outside of the thin layer of water and a monolayer of soap molecules on the inside of the water, giving you the soap bubble, gives you an effect which is called interference. Now you're all actually aware of what interference is in nature. It's the effect which happens on a wet morning when you've got an oily road. You see the colours on an oily road surface. And of course, nature has been playing with these sorts of metamaterials for a long time, as you will see in this creature here. Let me just go to low. The start of our work in metamaterials really began back here in 1998, 99, when Professor Roy, as is now, but Pete Roy came back to work with me as a postdoc, and we asked the question, how does this do this? How does this butterfly create this wonderfully vivid blue? And if you've never seen it before, it is absolutely staggeringly blue. I've got one here just to show you. Now this, the purists would say, is not a metamaterial. But I'm not a purist and I don't really care. Okay. Here's this vivid blue, and I'm going to pass it around. Please don't steal it, and please don't poke it. But if you take it out, those of you at the back sadly can't see this, it's actually just dull brown. Effectively, it's very similar material to what your fingernails are made of. It's a polymeric protein, and it's been sculpted, sculpted in a multilayer, which gives this stunning blue colour. And the cause of that blue colour is identical in essence to the way you get the colours on the necks of a mallard, or you get the colours in that soap bubble. It's an interference effect, a wave process. The waves of light interfere with themselves to give you bright, bright colours, gorgeous colours. If we could actually, biologists here, if you could make me that, you're a millionaire tomorrow. If you could make me that very easily, because it's non-polluting, and it's just simple materials, proteins, and putting it on clothes and materials would be fantastic. So pass that one around, have a look at it, and it'll take a while to get around. Laura, wherever you are, can you keep an eye to make sure it doesn't disappear? All right, just watch where it goes, all right? Thank you. Okay. So we asked ourselves the question, how does that butterfly do that? And you may say, well, I've just told you the answer, yeah, but it's not quite as simple as that. So let's have a look at the answer we got. The bottom, the wing is covered in tiny scales, so that's a metamaterial in itself. The wing scales are tiny little things. If you've ever killed a moth in your bedroom, you get that dust. Well, the dust of the wing scales are about 100, well, here they are. They're about 50 microns wide and about 100 microns long. This is covered like with a roof tile of these things. And the top of them is bright blue, reflecting, and the bottom is rather dull brown. You can see it yourself. So what's going on? There's a proof of what's going on. You take one of those creatures. These are, by the way, like cabbage white butterflies in South America. They're a bit of a nuisance, really. You drop a little bit of acetone or alcohol on the wing of the butterfly, and it changes colour. And then the alcohol evaporates, and it goes back to its original. It tells you it's not a dye colour like the colours in these. They're rather nice, aren't they? These seats here. It's not a dye colour. It's not absorbing some light, so that what's coming back at you is missing a colour, which is how this works. What's coming back here is the reflected blue. What's happened here, we've changed the structure in some senses. What we've done is introduced alcohol in the structure and changed the optics a little bit. We're replacing the air in the structure by alcohol. How does that work? Well, it's very straightforward, really, and forgive me, those physicists amongst you know this. Well, if you look at it in some detail with an electron microscope, each scale, these roof scales on the wing of the butterfly, has got fine structure. And in that fine structure, these ridges, if you look in detail, you find a set of Christmas trees. Not quite Christmas trees, because they're extruded in this direction. And what's going on is that this spacing here between these layers is tiny. It's of the order of 300 nanometers. Now remember, a hair on your head is about 100 microns. 300 nanometers is 1/300th of that. So it's quite well sculpted and evolved over the years. And each of these multi-layered stacks just is designed, has evolved, to reflect just blue light. It's just the right spacing for blue light, exactly. And you can look at it in more detail. You can see the pitch. This is 600 nanometers. Red light, this laser beam, has got a wavelength of that amount.